My wife's kids told me I owed their real dad an apology and said they wanted to cut me off. So I walked away, and what happened next broke them. I, Jason, 41, male now, and for a solid 9 years I lived under this illusion that I'd built a family from scratch. Turns out I was basically just the mechanic holding together someone else's wrecked car. When I met my wife, Laura, she already had 2 kids. Jake was 9, Lana was 6. I remember the first time I met them like it was yesterday. Jake gave me this "who the hell are you" look that only 9-year-olds can pull off, and Lana just kind of hid behind her mom, clutching a stuffed bunny like I was some weirdo. I didn't blame them. Their real dad, John, was still floating around somewhere, showing up whenever he remembered he had kids. Laura told me he was trying to be better. Translation, he called twice a year and sent shoes he probably couldn't afford. The man had all the commitment of a Wi-Fi signal in a tunnel. Still, I stepped in. Nobody forced me. I knew what I was signing up for. I told myself I wasn't just marrying Laura. I was marrying into the whole situation. I wanted stability, structure, something real. She was fun, smart, good-looking, and the kids, well, they needed a dad, whether they admitted it or not. The early days were awkward. Every move I made felt like walking on eggshells. Jake tested boundaries constantly, back-talking, ignoring chores, the usual "you're not my dad" attitude. Lana was easier. She'd draw me pictures and leave them on my desk, little stick figures of us holding hands. But Jake, man, that kid was a challenge. There was this one dinner where Laura tried to get everyone to say grace, and Jake mumbled, "Why do we got to do this? Dad never made us." The look Laura gave me could have melted steel. I just smiled and said, "Well, maybe that's why I'm here, to upgrade the software." He didn't get it, but Laura cracked up. That was my thing, handle chaos with sarcasm and keep my cool. And you know what? Eventually, it worked. I wasn't their father by blood, but I earned that title by consistency. I was the guy who showed up. The one who made sure their science projects didn't look like they were built by raccoons. The guy who sat in the bleachers during soccer games while John was probably out finding himself again. I paid for school supplies, food, doctor visits, birthdays, vacations, basically everything. Laura worked, but I carried the heavier load, didn't complain. That's what men do, right? Handle it. I wanted those kids to have the kind of life that didn't feel like a broken home. We weren't filthy rich or anything, but we had structure. Dinner together every night, movie nights on Fridays, small road trips during summer breaks, and slowly things started to feel right. Jake started warming up. I'd catch him asking me for advice or tagging along when I went to the hardware store. There was a moment I'll never forget. It was his first soccer tournament after I started coaching his team part-time. He scored his first goal, turned around, pointed right at me in the stands and yelled, "That's my dad." I swear if someone had told me to run into traffic right then, I would have done it smiling. That one sentence made every late-night shift and every "you're not my dad" argument worth it. John, though, that guy was like a ghost that occasionally left footprints. He'd call maybe twice a year, promising to visit soon, then vanish again. No child support, no effort. But whenever he did pop in, he'd act like some kind of celebrity. The kids would run to him because, well, he came bearing gifts and empty promises. Laura tried to pretend she was over him, but I could tell his shadow still lingered. She once said, "He's not a bad person, just irresponsible." I said, "Yeah, and I'm not broke, I just hate money." She laughed, but we both knew she was defending someone who deserved zero defense. Looking back, all the signs were there. Laura's occasional "John still deserves to see them" talks. Jake sometimes asking weird questions about what would happen if something happened to you. I just brushed it off. I figured they were curious. Kids ask dumb stuff all the time. I didn't know then that the man who disappeared for years would crawl back out of nowhere later and that I'd be the one left cleaning up his mess all over again. But at that time, I was proud. I looked at my life and thought, yeah, I did good. The thing about kids, they didn't care about money as long as you showed up. And I showed up every damn time. One night, Laura and I got into this small argument. Nothing major, just the usual couple nonsense. She thought I was being too strict with Jake about curfews. He wanted to stay over at a friend's place for the weekend, and I wasn't fully sold because I actually met the kid's parents once, and they gave off serious "we let our 13-year-old vape in the basement" vibes. Laura rolled her eyes and said, "He's growing up, Jason. You can't bubble wrap him forever." I laughed. "I'm not bubble wrapping him. I'm just making sure he doesn't end up in a YouTube prank video titled, 'Teen Loses Eyebrow in Backyard Explosion.'" She tried to stay mad, but I could see her trying not to laugh. We went back and forth for a few minutes until Jake, who apparently had been eavesdropping from the hallway, walked in and said, "Mom, he's right. He's just trying to help." Laura blinked. "You were listening." "Yeah," he said, shrugging like it was no big deal. "He's stricter, but he's never wrong about stuff." Laura stared at him for a second, then sighed and said, "Fine, you win," before walking off to put Lana to bed. Jake looked at me and grinned. You are kind of strict, though. Yeah, and you're still alive, so you're welcome, I said, tossing him a wink. That was one of those weirdly proud moments. Not the big, flashy kind, just that quiet realization that maybe finally I wasn't the outsider in my own house. That kid stood up for me when he didn't have to. That meant something. A few months later came the call that nearly made my heart stop. I was at work when the school phoned. Jake had been in a fight. They said fight, but when I got there, it looked more like a one-sided beating. His backpack was torn, lip busted, shirt dirty. He tried to act like it wasn't a big deal, but I could see his hands shaking. The principal started with the whole, "we're still gathering information" speech. I cut him off. "You had cameras in the hallway, right? Maybe check those before pretending it's a mystery." He didn't like that, but I didn't care. I didn't raise my voice, didn't curse, just gave him that look that says, "You're wasting my time." After the meeting, I drove Jake home. He was quiet the whole ride, staring out the window. Halfway there, I said, "You want to talk about it, or should I start guessing?" He shrugged. "They said stuff about me, about Mom." "What kind of stuff?" "That I didn't have a real dad, that you're just my mom's husband." I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. You know what? Screw them. A real dad's not the guy who makes a baby, it's the one who shows up and sticks around. You don't need to explain your family to people who can barely spell it. He laughed a little. "You're so weird sometimes." "Yeah, well, weird keeps you alive." That night I checked on him before bed. He was sitting at his desk doodling. When he saw me, he said quietly, "You're my only dad. You know that?" It wasn't some teary movie moment. No dramatic music, no hugs, just him saying it like it was a fact. But damn, it hit. I played it cool. "Don't get sentimental, kid. You're gonna ruin my reputation." He laughed, but I caught the look in his eyes. The kind that says, "I mean it." After that, something changed between us. He started coming to me for advice about school, friends, even dumb stuff like what sneakers to buy. We'd watch sports together, argue about teams, trash talk each other like best friends. It felt real. Laura saw it too. That night after dinner she said, "Thanks for handling everything today. I kind of froze up when the school called." She smiled soft this time. Genuine. "You're good for him, Jason. For both of them. And for once, I believed her. For that brief stretch of time, everything was perfect. I thought we'd made it through the hard part. That the foundation I'd built was solid. That night, hearing Jake call me his dad, I thought I'd made it. Thought I was part of something permanent. I didn't know that loyalty can disappear faster than trust funds. Life was running smooth for a while. The kids were doing well. Laura seemed content, and I was convinced we were finally past all the rough edges. You know that feeling when things are so normal it's almost suspicious? Yeah, that's where I was. Then out of nowhere, he came back after 9 years. John, the ghost of bad decisions past. The guy who vanished like a magician whenever responsibility knocked. It was a random Sunday afternoon. I was fixing the gutter outside when I saw a shiny black car pull up in front of the house. Out stepped John himself. Nice haircut, expensive jacket, fake smile plastered on like he practiced it in the mirror. He looked like one of those guys who buy designer belts but forget to pay child support. Laura froze when she saw him through the window. She muttered, "Oh my God," under her breath. I remember that exact tone. Not fear, not happiness, just guilt. Like someone who found an old photo they swore they'd thrown out. Before I could even say a word, Lana came running to the door yelling, "Dad!" And man, hearing that word from her mouth hit harder than a truck. John smiled at her, arms open, acting like he'd been there all along. "Hey, sweetheart, wow, look at you. You've grown so much." Of course she had, genius. That's what happens when you disappear for years. Jake came next, slower, more hesitant. But when John handed him a pair of fresh sneakers, the hesitation vanished real quick. He smiled. My kid smiling at him. Laura opened the door wider and gave this awkward half smile. "John, what are you doing here?" He shrugged like it was no big deal. "Just passing through. Figured I'd stop by, see how everyone's doing. Thought it was time I stepped up a little." I stood behind Laura, wiping my hands on a towel, not saying anything. My silence wasn't because I was scared or jealous. It was because I knew guys like him. The type who show up when the hard work's done and pretend they built the place. He turned to me and gave me that handshake that's half grip, half challenge. "Jason, right? Good to see you, man." "Is it?" I said, keeping my tone casual. "You've missed about 9 years of family events. Busy schedule." Laura shot me a look. The one that says, "Please don't start." So I didn't. Not yet. He stayed about an hour, long enough to drop off gifts that screamed compensation, not love. New shoes for Jake, a dupe designer bag for Lana, and a half-hearted apology for Laura. Then he left, promising to call soon, and he did. He started showing up every weekend after that, always with something flashy. Tickets to amusement parks, gaming consoles, sneakers that cost more than my car insurance. He'd pull up honking. The kids would run out like he was Santa, and I'd just stand at the door watching the scene play out. They'd come back Sunday night smelling like fast food. bragging about laser tag, arcades, bowling, all the fun things I didn't have the time or the spare cash for every weekend. John took us to a steakhouse, Jake said once mid-dinner. He said I should try something other than your plain chicken. Cool, I said, keeping my face neutral. Hope he taught you how to pay for it too. Laura gave me the please don't ruin the vibe look again. I gave her the then maybe stop defending this clown look back. She sighed. He's trying to make up for lost time, Jason. You can't hold that against him. Making up for lost time is fine, I said. Just weird that he's only showing up when everything's already built. I do all the maintenance. He takes the victory lap. She rubbed her forehead. Please, not in front of the kids. I wasn't trying to start a war. I just didn't like watching a guy who barely existed suddenly play hero in my house. The worst part was John didn't even hide his nosiness. He started asking me weirdly specific questions like about the house, my job, the mortgage, the insurance. So, Jason, he said one Sunday, sipping coffee at my kitchen table like he owned the place. Must be nice having your own home. You pay it off yet? Still working on it, I said, not looking up from my laptop. Yeah, big responsibility. You got life insurance and stuff? I glanced at him. Why? You planning to take out a policy on me? He laughed too hard. The kind of laugh people do when they get caught being too curious. Nah, man, just talking. I've been thinking about getting one myself. Sure you have, champ. I brushed it off, but something felt off. You ever get that gut feeling that someone's not just asking questions, they're collecting information? That was the vibe. Weeks went by and his pattern stayed the same. Fun weekends, fake charm, bragging about how he's turning things around. The kids started parroting his lines. Lana once said, Dad says money isn't everything, but he still paid for my nails and hair. Yeah, kid, money's not everything unless you use it to buy your way into someone's heart. Jake, though, was the one that really hit me. I overheard him one day on a call with his friend talking in that casual teenage tone like he was just updating someone on life. My real dad's back now, he said. He's doing great, owns a business, has a nice car. Mom says he's finally going to take care of us. He paused for a second, then added, laughing. Yeah, our real dad's rich. He's going to take care of us later. I stood in the hallway hearing every word. My jaw didn't clench, my eyes didn't tear up. I just stood there frozen because that's when it clicked. All the work, all the sacrifices, all those late nights I spent trying to give them a better life. It only took a few shiny gifts and fake promises for it to fade. Loyalty, I learned that day, doesn't just disappear. It gets bought one expensive sneaker at a time. John wasn't just back. He was everywhere. The guy went from ghosting his kids for almost a decade to suddenly acting like father of the year. He started posting pictures online with captions like, nothing more important than family time, conveniently leaving out the part where family time meant showing up after I'd already done all the heavy lifting. What really pissed me off wasn't that he was back, it was how quickly everyone adjusted to it. Laura started saying things like, you should be grateful they have both fathers now, both fathers. Like this was some parenting fairy tale instead of a man strolling into a life I built and putting his name on the mailbox. The kids started changing too. Jake used to tell me about his day, about school, about girls, all of it. Now everything was dad this, and dad that. John took him shopping. John got him a new watch. John said he could help him get into college. Lana was no better. She started calling me Jason again. Not Dad, just Jason. And every time she said it, it felt like someone erased another year of my life with them. One night I came home from work and found them all in the living room. Laura, Jake, Lana sitting on the couch like they'd been waiting for me. The TV was off. That's never a good sign. Laura said, we need to talk. My first thought was, okay, what did John screw up this time? But then I saw their faces, not angry, not sad, cold, like I was some stranger who wandered into their house. Jake started it, voice steady but rehearsed. We've been thinking about stuff, about how things have been all these years. Stuff like what? I asked, crossing my arms. He looked right at me. You took advantage of us. I laughed. I couldn't help it. What? Lana chimed in, serious as a judge. When we were little, we didn't have a dad and you made us depend on you. You acted like we had to love you because we didn't have anyone else. Laura didn't say a word, just sat there staring at the floor. Jake kept going. You made us feel like we owed you something, like you were some hero, but you're not. You just wanted to play dad because it made you feel important. I swear for a second I thought this was some kind of prank. I actually looked around expecting cameras to pop out. You think I wanted to take over? I said, trying not to lose it. You think I worked double shifts and coached soccer for the ego boost? You're welcome, by the way. For every birthday, every doctor visit, every time your real father didn't show. Jake snapped back. Stop calling him that. He is our real father. We're from his blood. Lana nodded. Yeah, you were just filling in until he came back. That one hit different, filling in like I was a damn temp worker in my own home. Laura finally spoke, barely above a whisper. They're just trying to express how they feel. Express how they feel? I said, staring at her. They just accused me of emotionally manipulating them. You're really gonna sit there and let that slide? She didn't answer, didn't even look up. Jake leaned forward, voice shaking but firm. You owe Dad an apology for trying to take his place. An apology? I repeated slowly like I was testing the word. Yeah, Lana added. You made us call you Dad when we already had one. I laughed again. Not the funny kind. The kind that happens when your brain refuses to process stupidity. Right. So let me get this straight. I feed you, clothe you, pay for school, fix every mess, and now I'm supposed to say sorry to the guy who left you. Jake's jaw tightened. He didn't leave us. He was struggling. You just took advantage while he wasn't around. That was it. The words I'd never imagined hearing. Took advantage. For years I killed myself trying to make their lives stable. Missed promotions, canceled trips, drained my savings, all so they'd never feel abandoned again. And now in their heads I was the villain who preyed on their weakness. I looked at Laura hoping for something. Even a small sign she disagreed, but she just stared at her hands. No defense, no correction, nothing. That silence broke something in me. You can argue with lies, you can fight back against insults, but silence means they've already decided what you are. I stood up, calm, controlled, years of frustration burning quietly in my chest. All right, I said. Jake frowned. All right, what? All right, I repeated, nodding slightly. You want me to apologize? Fine. They all looked surprised, maybe even relieved, like they thought they'd won something. But what they didn't know was that all right wasn't surrender. It was the sound of a man making peace with walking away. I looked at Laura one last time. I used to think family meant sticking it out no matter what. Turns out it just means knowing when you're not needed anymore. Lana looked confused. So are you sorry or not? I smiled. You'll find out soon enough. Then I walked out quietly. No yelling, no slamming doors, no final speech. Just left the room and went upstairs. They probably thought I was sulking or cooling off. They didn't know that in that silence I'd made my decision. That night I didn't lose my temper, I lost my patience. And once a man like me runs out of that, there's no fixing what comes next. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in my office, the same room where I'd helped Lana build her volcano project and where Jake once fell asleep doing algebra. Everything in that house had my fingerprints on it. And suddenly all of it felt borrowed. When the sun came up, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt done. There's a big difference. Anger fades. Being done, that's permanent. I made myself coffee, sat down at the desk, opened my laptop, and started cutting every tie that linked me to them one by one. Jake's college fund, gone. I'd been putting money in it since the day I married Laura. 9 years of saving, planning, working extra hours. I killed the 529 I owned and shut off every auto deposit. No warning, no speech, no second thoughts. Next was Lana's list of activities, dance lessons, summer programs, all those optional things that somehow became expected. I opened my email, pulled up the receipts, and canceled every single one. Then came the credit cards, the ones Laura and the kids used freely. Lana had one linked to the App Store. Jake had his for emergencies, which apparently meant fast food and sneakers. I shut them all down. Even the small stuff, streaming accounts, subscriptions, meal kits, family plans, all gone. Every convenience I had funded, every luxury they took for granted, wiped clean. I wasn't doing it out of spite. I was doing it because they made it clear I was no longer part of their story. I was just the background noise they'd gotten used to. Once the accounts were settled, I went to the cabinet and pulled out every document I had, receipts, invoices, bills, tax forms, every cent I'd spent since the day I stepped into that house. Doctor visits, school trips, braces, car repairs, groceries, all of it. It took hours. But I organized everything into a neat binder. On the cover I wrote in bold marker, "Everything you owe." When I was done, the total stared back at me like a number carved into stone. $314,278. 9 years of being their safety net, condensed into black and white. Around noon I started packing. Not my stuff, theirs. Jake's shoes, his sports gear, his gaming console, Lana's toys, books, stuffed animals, clothes. I boxed up every single thing I had bought. The house looked emptier with every trip to the truck, but it also felt lighter. Laura must have heard the noise because she came downstairs halfway through. What are you doing? I didn't even look up. Giving you exactly what you wanted. Jason, this isn't funny. Who's joking? I taped up another box. You said I took advantage of vulnerable kids, so I'm fixing that. I won't be part of their lives anymore. Don't worry. John can handle it. Her face went pale. You can't just... Sure I can. I cut her off, calm as ever. You made your choice when you said nothing. You let them call me a liar in my own home. You stayed quiet, Laura. That's worse than agreeing with them. She stood there frozen. Not a single apology, not even a wait. By 2 o'clock the truck was full, every piece of evidence of my existence as their father, packed tight and ready to be delivered. Before I left, I took out my phone and typed a message to John. Pick them up today. They only listen to you. No punctuation, no emojis, no explanation, just facts. 10 minutes later he replied, "Are you serious?" I didn't bother answering. I was already on the road. His apartment was smaller than I expected. Old paint, leaky balcony, the kind of place that smelled like cigarettes and takeout. All that flex, shiny car, designer jacket, big shot attitude, and he lives like a broke TikTok guru. I carried each box inside myself. He stood there panicking, trying to keep up. "What is all this?" he said, voice cracking a little. I set the last box down, placed the binder on his counter, and said, "Everything I've paid for over 9 years. You're their real dad, right? Time to step up." He opened the folder, skimmed through the receipts, and his mouth dropped open. This can't be right." "It's all there," I said. "You wanted to be the father. Congratulations. You just inherited the bill." He tried to stop me when I turned to leave. "Wait, Jason. You can't just dump them on me like this." I looked him dead in the eye. "They're yours now." He said something else, but I didn't hear it. I was already halfway down the hall. On the drive back, my phone buzzed. A text from him saying he was heading over to pick up Laura and the kids. I didn't drive home right away. I parked by a diner, ordered black coffee, and just sat there staring out the window. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not happiness, not relief, just silence. When I finally got back, Laura was packing too. Guess she didn't waste any time. She looked at me once, then back at the boxes. "I'll move in with John for a while. He said he can help." "Perfect," I said. "Then you're right where you belong." She flinched like I'd slapped her, but she didn't argue. I'd already printed out the separation agreement. Basically the first step toward divorce. She didn't even read it, just scribbled her name and walked out. No tears, no apologies, no regret. Just a woman walking away from everything I built, convinced her ex, the same guy who abandoned her, was suddenly her savior. Jake and Lana didn't even come inside. They waited in John's car, probably too embarrassed or too proud to face me. I watched them drive off, the taillights disappearing down the street. That was the last time I saw them as my family. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't chase after them. I just locked the door and looked around the house. Empty walls, quiet rooms, no laughter. But for once, it didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. They said I took advantage of them when they were vulnerable, but all I ever did was show up when no one else did. And if that's a crime, then fine, I'll take the sentence. As I stood there, everything hit me all at once. The years, the money, the effort, the love that went nowhere. And then it just evaporated. They wanted their real dad. Now they got him. After they left, the house felt like it could finally breathe again. No yelling, no slammed doors, no one asking me to transfer money or fix something that broke because they ignored my advice. Just me, my coffee maker, and the quiet hum of a place that was finally mine again. The first couple weeks I stayed busy. Went back to hitting the gym before work, cooked for myself, even fixed up the backyard shed into a small workspace. For the first time in forever, my life wasn't about managing everyone else's problems. It was about mine. And it was quiet, simple, predictable. Then about 2 months in, I started hearing things. Not from them directly. They didn't reach out, but through people who couldn't mind their own business. A friend from my old job texted me, "Hey, isn't Laura your ex? Saw her at the store. She looked stressed. Said her guy's been out of work for a bit." I just replied, "Not my circus anymore." Still, it got me thinking. Turns out John's comeback story wasn't holding up so well. The job opportunity he bragged about turned out to be nothing more than part-time work at a dealership. His spending habits didn't change, though. He still played the role of big man, dinners, gadgets, little splurges he couldn't afford until the money dried up. And when the money goes, so does the fun. Word got around that Laura and John were arguing a lot. The same woman who told me I was too strict was now complaining that John was too unreliable. Life's got a sense of humor like that. Jake, from what I heard, quit talking about college completely. The kid who once dreamed of being an engineer was now flipping burgers to help his real dad with bills. That part stung a little, but not enough to make me regret what I did. Lana dropped out of her activities too. No dance classes, nothing. She stayed home a lot, apparently glued to her phone. Laura's sister told someone that she'd been acting different, but honestly, how could she not? The whole fantasy world they built around John was collapsing. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just went about my days, quietly, watching life play out exactly how I warned it would. Then one night, it happened. The call. It was around 10:30. I just finished watching a game and my phone buzzed. Laura's name popped up on the screen. I hadn't seen it in months. For a second, I thought maybe she dialed the wrong number, but curiosity got me. I answered. Her voice was trembling. "Jason." I leaned back in my chair. "Who is this?" "Please," she said. I know you don't owe me anything, but I need to talk. There was something in her tone, desperation, exhaustion, the same kind she used to have when she'd call me to fix something. Except this time it wasn't about a leaky faucet. What's wrong? I asked, even though I already knew it had to do with John. He's gone, she said quietly. John left, just packed his stuff and disappeared. The kids don't know what to do. Jake's angry all the time. Lana barely speaks. I didn't say anything, just waited. She kept talking. He was never planning to stay, Jason. You were right about everything. Her voice cracked. He only came back because he thought you'd adopted them. That made me sit up. What does that have to do with anything? He thought if he reconnected with them, he'd benefit from you. Maybe get some financial edge. Use the kids as a bridge. I don't even know. I laughed, but it wasn't the funny kind. So he didn't come back for them. He came back for me. Or what he thought he could get from me. She started crying. When he found out they weren't legally yours, that everything was still in your name, he stopped trying. The next morning he was gone. I let that sit for a moment. All those years of trying to be the man John refused to be, and he only returned because he thought I'd built something he could cash out of. Laura sniffled on the other end. I was wrong about you, Jason. I see that now. Yeah, I said quietly. Took you long enough. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. But Jake, he's lost. He said he misses you. He won't say it out loud, but I can tell. He realizes now what you were trying to do for him. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Can you at least talk to them? She asked. Please. They need some kind of stability. I took a deep breath. No, Laura. They need to live with the choices they made just like you do. She started to cry harder. Jason, please. I cut her off. You know what I realized? I spent 9 years proving I was a good father to kids who didn't even want one. You spent 2 months proving you couldn't handle the man you replaced me with. I think we're even. And then I ended the call. No yelling, no slamming the phone down, just a quiet click. I sat there for a while afterward, staring at the ceiling. The silence that followed wasn't the empty kind. It was clean, like fresh air after a storm. They'd made their choice, and they got exactly what they asked for. John wanted what he thought was mine. Laura wanted the fantasy of a perfect family. The kids wanted the cool dad. And they all got it for a little while until reality reminded them what real actually means. Sometimes you don't need to get revenge. You just need to stop saving people from their own consequences. I poured myself a coffee, walked through my quiet house, and sat out on the porch. The night was calm. The world hadn't fallen apart, just their version of it. They wanted their real dad. They got him. And just like last time, he left. A year passed. Funny how fast time moves when you stop waiting for people to appreciate you. Somewhere along the way I met Claire. We crossed paths at a hardware store, both staring at the same power drill like we were deciding if adulthood was worth the price tag. She laughed at one of my sarcastic comments. Most people don't. And that was that. No drama, no ghosts, no baggage. She didn't need saving, and I wasn't trying to save anyone. We clicked because neither of us needed the other to fill a hole. For once, I wasn't living in reaction to anyone else. I wasn't cleaning up after people who took my effort for granted. I wasn't explaining my worth. I was just existing, and it felt better than any apology could. Then one day I ran into them. It was at the grocery store, the same one I'd taken the kids to every Saturday years ago. I was picking up a few things, coffee, pasta, dog food for Claire's golden retriever, when I saw them at the far end of the aisle. Laura looked smaller, not physically, but in presence. Her face had lines that weren't there before, the kind that come from exhaustion, not age. Her hair was pulled back, messy, and she was arguing quietly with Lana, who stood beside her holding a basket that looked too heavy for her to bother with. Jake was a few steps behind, older now, but with eyes that had lost that spark he used to have. He spotted me first. For a second our eyes met. No tension, no anger, just recognition. He didn't look away right away this time. Instead he gave me this short nod. Not an apology, not a greeting, just a silent "I get it now." That was enough. Lana noticed him looking and turned her head. The moment she saw me, she froze. Then she quickly turned back to the shelf, pretending to compare cereal boxes. It stung for about half a second. Then it didn't. Kids grow up. They learn the truth eventually, even if they can't say it out loud. On my way out, I passed Jake again. He didn't say a word, but he gave me that same look, one that said he finally understood what being a real man meant. I nodded back, then pushed my cart toward the exit. Outside, the air felt different. Not lighter, not heavier, just mine. I loaded the groceries into my car, sat there for a minute, and thought about everything that happened. 9 years of my life spent building something that was never really mine. And yet I didn't regret it because now I knew the difference between love and servitude, between loyalty and self-sacrifice. I used to think walking away made you heartless. Now I know it just means you finally stopped volunteering for your own misery. John showed them fake love and walked away. I showed them real love and did the same. The only difference is I never came back. And that right there is the peace I was looking for all along.